Hi, I'm David Gordon-Koch reporting from Moncton, and this is the NB Update, news and critical perspectives on current events in New Brunswick from the NB Media Co-op. New Brunswick's former Commissioner of Systemic Racism, Manju Varma, is calling out the pay gap that leaves women worse off than men and women of color at the bottom of the heap. Here she is speaking at a recent panel organized by the YWCA of Greater Moncton.
It's hard to believe that we're still talking about this. But Stats Canada has just put out its numbers actually just a little while ago. And not only are women still making less than men, and I think it's about 80 cents on the dollar now. So we've moved a little bit forward, but not much. But racialized women are still at the bottom of the heap. The type of work that they are hired to do, the pay difference between them and other parts of our communities. There is no other reason for that other than the fact that it is just pure inequality.
That was Manju Varma, New Brunswick's first ever Commissioner of Systemic Racism. She was speaking as part of a panel discussion at the Dieppe Arts and Culture Centre hosted by the YWCA of Greater Moncton, along with the United Way. Other panelists included Lieutenant Governor Brenda Murphy, a longtime advocate for women's equality and Canada's first openly gay person appointed to a vice-regal position, Tara Hosford, a YWCA Moncton staff member who is also a survivor of poverty and violence, Donna Ferguson, owner of She Builds, a construction company that empowers women in the trades, and Carly Cormier, a firefighter with the Canadian Forces at CFB Halifax. The event, called the Pink Tea Gala, was timed to mark 95 years since a famous legal ruling that recognized women as persons under Canadian law. The so-called Persons Case established the right of women to be appointed to the Senate. New Brunswick Senator Nancy Hartling emceed the event along with Rena Arsenault of UNB's Muriel McQueen Ferguson Centre for Family Violence Research.
So first, a little history about the Persons Tea and why we celebrate it. Because I know a lot of people are curious today, why are we wearing pink? What are we doing here? So we want to give you a little of the backstory. So in the mid-1900s, women held pink teas to discuss how to advance women's equality. And the menfolk thought that they were just drinking tea. Little did they know what they were up to and what was really happening. So you might say drinking tea helps gender equality.
Here are some of the highlights from the Pink Tea Gala panel discussion, which was facilitated by Michelle Nadeau, head of the Moncton YWCA.
The pivotal moment in my life that led me to the YWCA, I ended up in an addiction facility, a rehabilitation center for women, after struggling for about 22 years with addiction and homelessness and other issues that went along with that. So after graduating from the program, I did end up working with them and helping other ladies that came through the program, and eventually ended up helping with the administration side and keeping the house organized, that type of thing. However, I did end up getting burnt out trying to keep up with that. I was in the process as well as getting my children back. So there was a lot going on in my personal life as well. So during that time, I had it in my mind that I was heading back home, which Michelle said was in St. John. I had no plan. And I was going to do what I always did, which was run. So I had my bags packed, but there was a woman there who was helping out. And she said, "Have you ever heard the YWCA?" And I said, "No, but I'm going." But she said, just stay around and come with me and do an intake. So along I went. I was back to being very vulnerable and feeling helpless and hopeless at this point. And even though I had my mind made up that I was going back home, I was scared too. I was scared to go back to that whole environment. So in the intake I went at the YWCA on Kendra, and I sat with this woman, and she explained about the housing program and different programs. And I left not having any expectations or really knowing what to expect. But shortly after, I got a phone call saying that we have an apartment for you. Again, no expectations, didn't know what was going to happen, and went into my new 3-bedroom apartment. Not only was it for me, but it was for my children, who eventually did end up back with me. And during that time, I attended many different programs and services at the YWCA, like life skills and just all different kinds of programs to help me through that transition of becoming housed and becoming a mother and going back to school, and even now working there. So that's it.
And boy, are we ever happy. I have 35 years experience in the construction industry. When I started in 89, it took me about 3 years to count 5 women in the industry. 3 of them were inspectors, engineers in the project management or government positions. And then there was a young lady that was a survey technician, and of course myself. So that didn't bother me, I guess. Fast forward to about 2015, having done a lot of different things in my career, all of a sudden some people were starting to raise the alarm that we have a skilled trade shortage happening. And so I looked at the industry that I had been a part of for those many years, and I did the simple math, and I'm a fan of math. Women represent more than 50% of the population, and they represented 4% of the trades. So that, to me, that's the pool that we need to be tapping into to try to address this skilled trade shortage. So originally, this She Builds was just supposed to be a little initiative that we were going to do with my company, Evolve MB. We were set to go. We were going to have a little boot camp for some ladies to start, and then COVID hit, like exactly at the same time. So when COVID hit, then we had a completely realignment of priorities, not the company we, but the society we. The people from the cities, they fled, they went to the suburbs, and because now we have remote work, the suburbanites, apparently most of them moved here to New Brunswick because our housing costs virtually doubled in the span of a very short period of time, 6 months probably. So affordability is now a way beyond reach. We had issues with accessing building materials. The cost of construction was going through the roof. Plus, we still had the labor shortage that we had to deal with, and we have affordability issues. So it was a New Year's resolution of mine in 2021 that the best way to provide opportunities for women to come into the trades was not to have an initiative, but to just full stop start a new construction company that was, I guess, if you want something to happen, you have to actually say it out loud. So that's when She Builds Communities for Life became its own company, and it's been an experience. We are just a toddler still. We're 3 years old, and some of the I think you may have called them setbacks. We'll call them mini challenges. Yeah, challenges. That's the word that we're looking for. One of them is as a business and a business owner is finding balance between doing the work and educating both the people that are coming through our doors and the public, and also marketing. That's been a learning curve for me. I'm still working on it. The other thing that I've noticed a little bit of a challenge is the fact that we, as a society, and women too, we have and it's not a general statement, but there is a bias on pay equity, even in the trades. So over 35 years that I've been in this, one thing that I've learned is that young men or men, they get fast and then good. And when women come through the doors and they go into the trades, they get good and then they get fast. And it's to educate and to have people willing to pay for that learning curve, I guess. And the other issue we wanted to, I'm always looking for the win-win, and the win-win in this case was getting more people into the trades. It was helping women build a career, build some generational wealth that they could pass on, and then maybe attack this affordable housing situation that we have as well. And that has affordable housing is its own. It's an animal that requires certain attention compared to the private sector for lodging or housing. There's a business model, and it's based on a revenue basis. In the affordable housing, you don't have the revenue base for your business plan. So now you have to be engaged with, and which is great. We love this. All different levels of government, different funding organizations, and the thing that we need to understand is that this apartment and this apartment, they cost the same to build. In fact, affordable housing probably is costing a little more now because all of these funding streams have energy efficiency requirements built in and things like that. So it's been a bit of a challenge from getting project from conception to building, but I tell you, it's coming.
I just received a phone call one day asking me if I had applied. And I had heard about the position and really hadn't given it a lot of thought. So I just said, no, I haven't applied. I'm not applying. You should apply, said to the person who's calling me. And he said, well, if you do not apply, then you cannot complain about whoever they pick, right? He said it was like voting. So I guess it's a timely answer. It's like voting. If you don't vote, then you can't complain about who wins. And I said, well, it's fine. I won't complain about who gets the position. And he said, yes, you will. So so then I said, okay, let me think about it. And he said, I know that you're tough enough to do this position as well. And I guess that should have been a light bulb moment, because I thought, I've never applied for a job that I had to be tough enough, right? And I've worked in prisons, so I should have known. And so I did apply. I have to say that I was surprised at how rigorous the process was. And as I went through the rigorous process, I was like, okay, there's a seriousness around this, which I guess became more appreciative of the position. Once I got the position, I guess I was a bit naive. I was a bit naive because I didn't realize it would be such a public position. I was used to, as a professor and as a civil servant, working in the background, doing my thing, going home, and that was it. And that was definitely not the case. So my friend was wrong. I was not tough enough to do it, but I knew people who were. And it's probably the first time that I've had the experience of other women, even women I did not know, gather around me and support me in times when things got really tough. And a lot of the work that I did, a lot of the stories that I heard, it was interesting because whatever a man was experiencing, it was multi-layered for a woman. And so even, it sounds strange, but even among racism, there's an inequity. And I agree that we do stand on the shoulders of giants, but we also have to keep in mind that it was much later that women of color became people.
True.
And were even part of that conversation. So I guess that's what inspired me, is a phone call that I probably shouldn't have answered. The phone, well, honest.
We're very grateful that you answered the call. Firefighting was never something that I set out to do, right? Like I said, it was just on a whim. Growing up, I didn't have anyone in my family that was a firefighter. I did later on, but when I was young, I didn't. So I grew up doing dance choreographies and playing with Polly Pockets. So anyways, it was kind of at that moment I realized, I'm behind on a lot of, that side of the field for sure. And so coming out of fire school and during, I guess, is when I realized physically I was behind as well. So just like I was the youngest, I was the smallest and the weakest strength-wise by far in my class. And so coming out of there, and then applying for departments where I had to pass a fitness test. I failed, and I failed miserably at those initial fitness tests. And that was really hard for me. Like, as a young girl, it was just really hard to overcome that. Physically it was hard, but mentally it was hard as well. I just felt like I was so way off that I was like, for a few years, I had just decided that maybe that wasn't for me. I just felt like that mountain in between me and the career was so big that it just wasn't even worth it. But it's just through, like, I joined CrossFit gym, and just slowly, I just, over consistency and over time, I was able to gain the strength that I needed. And now at this point in my career, I'm so confident in my physical abilities. Like, even, with my male counterparts, it's a passion of mine now.
Some of you may know that when I was appointed to this position, my predecessor had passed away, so it was very quick. It was a 2-week turnaround from when I got a call that I had not been seeking out to when I was appointed. And so, my work had been on the ground in communities, and so the deference paid to this position was really, it's weird. It still is weird. And so, I had to get my head around that that's the position and not me. And somebody gave me really good advice, which was be yourself. So that was a very small challenge. But the big one for me was, again, some of you may know that when I was first appointed, I didn't speak French. And growing up, French immersion was not an option for me. There was no French immersion in the school system at that time. I had the "Tu connais Marcel Martin? Oui, nous sommes de bons copains." That, I had that in grade school, but not a lot of French. And the nonprofit I worked for had paid for me to do a little bit of French training, which did give me a nice foundation when I started the position, because I committed to learning that. But it was hard at 60. I felt like I had to create new pathways in my brain, and learning a new language is really a challenge. But in terms of how I tried to overcome that, it's nothing really profound. I mean, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. In any kind of learning, we're vulnerable when that happens. And so being in a leadership position, I was very visible. And so there's a vulnerability in that was challenging. But I think that when we're on shaky ground as women, we keep working at it until the ground becomes more solid. And that's what I think I've been able to do. And it's still hard. I'm 65. It's still hard, but I think it's a little better now.
Merci beaucoup. See a lot of issues throughout my day, even at my job, and even just out in society. So some of the issues that I see that women face today are kind of like some of the same issues that were faced many, many years ago. I believe there's a type of stigma attached to being a woman, and a type of stereotype that is put on women, whether it be through society or generational or whatever it may be. It is there. I see it in the workplace, where mothers trying to hold down a job, bring in an income, and the double standard of having to go home and still be the stay-at-home mom type role, taking care of the kids, all those things. And the obstacles that even single mothers face are huge. And having to face, do I go to work? Do I stay at home? Those types of things. And even the value of a woman, I see, is a big challenge that I see that women face. Like, even I'll say, like, out in the homelessness community, because I do see a lot of that community even in my job and every day. And the value of a woman, not just in that sector, but all sectors, of having to do something in order to receive something, whether that just be to the basics of security, housing, whatever it is, that pressure of having to do something for something. I see that as being a challenge that women face as well.
We were doing a renovation not too long ago on a nice little home, and I know that one of the women that worked for me wanted to do a backsplash, and I wanted to do a backsplash there. So what we do is, I said, here's your chance. So we set them up with the proper tools to do the job, their personal protective equipment, whether they be dust masks or what have you, and I give them what my expectations are, what pitfalls that they might find during the process, and then I let them go to it. So I know that that backsplash is probably the best backsplash you'll ever see, because those two girls that did it, they YouTubed and teamworked that like was nobody's business. So that's been, 3 weeks ago? The next week, we suited them up in Tyvek suits and respirators and things like that, and rented a blown-in insulation machine to insulate an attic on another property that we were working on, and they did it. And we had one feeding the machine, we had one up there blowing in the R60, making sure that it was done exactly the way it should be done. They were so proud of their accomplishments. And then I threw another little curveball at them. There was a manufacturer's rep was putting on a free barbecue over at the Downey's Home Hardware, and they were working in Riverview at the time. I said, you guys should go, okay? So it's just like clockwork. I get a text, they're going there. I get a text, and the text reads, I would only do this for you. There's 50 men here. So I called them. I said, okay, it's time to pull up the big girl pants. I said, you guys walk in there. You walk in tall and proud. You belong there. You're part of this industry, and you can do any work that any of those men can do. Yeah. So I get another text about a half an hour later. Donna, the rep, give me his card. If ever we do a project, he answered all our questions. We went right up to him. And if we ever do a project where we use his products, he wants to come and he wants to work with us on it. It's perfect. So now, that would be this week. That same woman that really wanted to do the backsplash did it for us. Now she's installing her first kitchen with a gentleman that we brought in that has a lot of experience, and she's killing it. And she's measuring up this afternoon to do the first backsplash for a non-me client. Okay, so yeah, so this woman, one of them, is in her first block. She's taken her second block in January. And the other lady just became an apprentice. She's only been with me for about a month. And God willing, this time next year, they would have built their first apartment building, housing for women, a 15-unit, downtown Moncton. And the sky's the limit for them.
Manju, can you discuss a critical systemic issue and what steps are being taken to address it? A little question, just tiny.
Well, given, I guess, the audience, equity, especially pay equity, it's hard to believe that we're still talking about this. But Stats Canada has just put out its numbers, actually, just a little while ago. And not only are women still making less than men, and I think it's about 80 cents on the dollar now, so we've moved a little bit forward, but not much. But racialized women are still at the bottom of the heap. The type of work that they are hired to do, the pay difference between them and other parts of our communities. There is no other reason for that other than the fact that it is just pure inequality. So that's a really, it's almost it makes it a more difficult issue to tackle, because when you have inequality or something that's not working, there's a reason, right? But in this case, there is no reason other than who these women are. And it is accepted. It is well known. It's accepted in numerous occupations, whether it is like the service industry, hospitality, even up to university professors. So it appears to be a type of philosophy that we accept as normal, regardless of the sector that we're working in. And we just have to start saying, no, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for women of any background to be making less than their male counterparts, especially since some of you have pointed out that we have to work harder, and we have other duties on top of that we bring home a paycheck that's even smaller. But when that paycheck becomes even smaller because of the color of your skin or your religion, then there is something that we just should not be accepting about that.
Was Manju Varma, who served as New Brunswick's first ever Commissioner on Systemic Racism from October 2021 to February 2023. We also heard from Lieutenant Governor Brenda Murphy, Tara Hosford, a YWCA Moncton staff member who also is a survivor of violence and poverty, Donna Ferguson, owner of She Builds, and Carly Cormier, a firefighter with the Canadian Forces at CFB Halifax. They were speaking as part of a panel discussion on October 17th at the Dieppe Arts and Culture Centre hosted by the YWCA of Greater Moncton and the United Way. We'll post the full uncut video on our website, nbmediacoop.org. Thanks for tuning in to the NB Update today. I'm David Gordon-Koch.